And so think of today as an opportunity to ask questions that you don't yet have answers to. I will walk through some things that I think will be helpful as you start classes at Emory, and things that might be helpful for you in the 4 years and beyond that you're here. I'm going to keep this very casual. You can see I'm in my study at home, this top floor of my house. You know, I'm surrounded by my work. I've got coffee on this side, water on this side, etc. So just, I mean, really, this is going to be fairly casual and relaxed. If you have questions, there's a link to a Google Doc, and you can put them in there in the chat, and you can ask the questions anonymously if you would like to. But really, please ask questions. We already have one about you know, how to stay organized that I will answer. So the idea is I'll walk you through some of the things I really want to make sure I've talked to you about. And then we will definitely have time for questions. And really to emphasize that no question is stupid. There's no question that is not worth asking. That is really, if I had one thing to say about succeeding in college and life in general, is being willing to ask for help and ask a question, because without that one really just can't grow. So I'm really delighted to see you. So let's get going. This gives you a sense of what we're going to talk about. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm going to talk a little bit about, you know, what it means that we're all embarking on this year in the time of COVID. I just call it COVID time. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about thriving in college, etiquette, learning during COVID time, and this year. So a bit about me. So my official title at the moment is Vice Provost for Undergraduate Affairs, which means that my office and the office is really there to connect the whole of the undergraduate experience from the time you arrive on campus, like now during orientation, to when you graduate. So our office works with academics, with students, with campus life to make sure that you really have the most intellectually exciting and flourishing experience that you possibly can at Emory. In the Office of Undergraduate Affairs, we are in the Provost office, and the Provost office is the chief academic office for the university. Emory is made up of a number of schools. So there's the College of Arts and Sciences, which you are enrolled in. There's Oxford College, which you know about, which is a 2-year college, and your colleagues there will join you in their junior year most often. We have the School of Nursing, which is also an undergraduate school where students go from also in their junior year, and we have the School of Business, Goizueta, where you will also join if you want to, or you stay in the college. And then we have a number of professional schools, law school, public health, School of Medicine. I'm sure I'm missing one. We have the Laney Graduate School. And so The Central University Office, which oversees all of those in terms of academic affairs, is the Office of the Provost. And so our office is in that office, and we're in the administration building. And I was going to show you a lovely picture of the administration building, but given the dynamics of a Zoom and a YouTube, I can't get my screen to work that way. So you're just stuck with my office. In our Office of Undergraduate Affairs, there's me. And then there's Associate Vice Provost for Undergraduate Affairs, who is Heather Mugg. And then we have an Associate Director, Mary Beth Smith. And we work on, again, ensuring you have the best time ever. We work very closely with our colleagues in the Office of Undergraduate Education who've helped me organize this video today. And in our Office of Undergraduate Affairs, we focus on first generation students. We make sure that your experience is good here. We also really help all students navigate their way through academics. We connect with campus life. So that's our office. More about me. So when I'm not doing this role, which I've been doing for a few years, I'm a professor in the college. I got my PhD at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor in history, in comparative women's history and African history. If I was doing this in person, as I was doing last year, I would say, where do you think I come from? And quite often I hear, you know, Australia, New Zealand, London, and sometimes people will say South Africa. And yes, that is true. I come from South Africa, from Stellenbosch, which is a sort of the wine growing district near Cape Town. And I grew up under apartheid. I went to university there. And while I was at university, I met an American. I'm still with the American, and he is a professor at Emory. And we were lucky enough to come here. I used to teach at Denison University in Ohio, before that Kenyon College in Ohio. And so I really am committed to the liberal arts experience that you are also getting here at Emory. I am an alumni parent, so both our children came to Emory and graduated just a few years ago. Our son is at Duke University doing his PhD, and our daughter is in Los Angeles, where she works for United Talent Agency. Again, I obviously very proud of my children, and what I would just say about both of them is that their careers at Emory exemplify, I think, what we really are trying to do here at Emory, which is give you 4 years to really experience what you are interested in, learn what you're interested in. And life is long. You can major in really anything that truly interests you. That does not predetermine what you will do as a job. So I'll just use my daughter as an example. She majored in Italian studies and classical civilizations, and now is working at a talent agency. And you would think that she needed, you know, a business degree, etc. And that is certainly one route. And she did actually hang out a lot with business students and really liked the business school. But the key thing, I think, in her getting this particular position was that she spoke Italian. She really wanted this opportunity to be at UTA, and really went about figuring out how to do that and spoke to people. And so really finding your passion, and then just making sure that you commit to working as hard as possible, getting an internship, showing that you are a well-rounded, wonderful individual will serve you very well. And that really, in a sense, is our principle at Emory. Okay, so before I go into any more detail, I do just really want to acknowledge, you know, I am really sorry that you are having your first year in college under these conditions. I was talking to someone earlier today who said they feel shipwrecked. And I think actually all of us to some extent are shipwrecked. We are in some way biding our time until we have a vaccine, until we know we can really, really engage in life safely in the usual way. So this is a difficult time, and we are so pleased that you've chosen Emory, whether you've been able to come to campus, wanted to come to campus, or whether you are, you know, in Beijing, or whether you're in Los Angeles, DC, we are really, really glad to have you here. And we have thought really, really hard about how we can really help you have a good year and a good first year under this really challenging conditions of a pandemic. And so I just really want to say we are sorry. We are all experiencing some of this stress that comes with COVID. And to the extent that we can, we have really tried to be incredibly intentional about creating a good first year for you. And so I just want to start with obviously the safety. So, you know, public health experts talk about the 3 W's, and it's a very easy way of understanding what keeps one safe. Wear a face covering, watch your distance, 6 feet at least, and wash your hands a lot. Doesn't mean you have to turn into Lady Macbeth, but yes, wash your hands a lot. And so what we've learned, you know, we have a very good School of Medicine, and what we've learned from our colleagues in the School of Medicine, who are teaching medical students, who are doctors in the hospital, is the wonderful thing is that actually, if you wear your face covering, wash your hands and watch your distance, it is really, really a way of staying safe. That even students who are in the, you know, in the medical field, who are in the hospital doing the internships or whatever, are not getting sick now as they might have earlier. Because now we know if you do that, it is really a way of staying safe. And so I really encourage you, please, you know, abide by the compact that everybody agreed to. And I know it's hard. Sometimes when one sees one's friends, one just wants to give them a hug. It's actually sometimes really painful not to be able to say hi, or, you know, just, you know, high five or whatever. But if you watch those 3 W's, the chances of staying safe are so much bigger. And that way we can keep on, you know, having our time at Emory. Okay, so I just also want to talk about stress and loneliness. And this is more, it is about COVID, but one of the things, you know, that we see in movies and, you know, novels about the college experiences, we always hear, oh, it's fantastic. You go to college and it's just party, 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 and go to classes and it's just fabulous. And hopefully that is true. Your first year can be absolutely fabulous. And we want you to make friends and find classes you love and have fun. And we know that under COVID time, the nature of fun in particular has to be modulated. You just have to really think carefully. But more generally, what I just want to say to everybody is what we don't talk about enough is that the first year can be a really stressful time. You know, you're trying to make friends. You're not sure who, like, is the first person you meet going to be your best friend? They could be. I mean, sometimes they are, but maybe not. And how do you tell? And so just forgiving yourself that if there are times when you feel lonely or stressed, or you feel like everybody else is having the most fantastic time and you're not, and you haven't found your people, please know that you are not alone. That is actually part of the first year. And one of the things that is so wonderful about college, and a bit scary, is that the way you grow, sometimes the way to grow is through those kind of periods of like, I don't know who I am and who are my friends and what do I really like. That is how you grow. So all I want to say is, you know, yes, you will have wonderful times. I hope you do. And if there are moments when you feel a bit lonely and stressed, know that that is actually part of growth, and it is part of the first year, and that you are not alone. I had a first year seminar that I taught a few years ago, and I was getting all these texts from students saying, oh, Pamela, you know, I feel stressed and I'm lonely and I don't have friends and everything else. And finally I stopped in the class after a few weeks and said, just by the way, practically everybody in this class has been texting me the same thing. So why don't we just have a conversation about the stresses of first year? And, you know, to know you're not alone feeling that, I think is worth holding on to. And okay, so moving right along. Okay, so as I think you've seen in some of your orientation materials, our motto at Emory is the wise heart seeks knowledge. And, you know, I love that motto. And as we say here, it reinforces our commitment to each student's intellectual journey. And it, you know, the wise, the heart, you know, we want you to be a decent human being who, you know, looks after yourself and others, i.e. wear your mask and wash your hands and keep your distance. But we are here at a university that is, the point of it is to seek knowledge That's why you're coming here to learn, but it's also to create knowledge. And what we do value at Emory is you're going to have lots of chances to participate in research, to work with a professor, to work with your peers on creating knowledge of all sorts, you know, designing apps, doing a research project, etc., working in a lab in the School of Medicine. But I love the Wise Heart Seeks Knowledge because it combines learning, heart, and community, and wisdom. Is that we can all learn things, but wisdom comes from knowing how to apply them in certain contexts. And I think wisdom is actually a form of empathy. So I love our motto. If you use that to guide your 4 years at Emory, you will do well. And just to say what's said at the top of that slide is that we really do think about your entry into Emory, these early weeks, the first year, as the beginning of a lifelong process of learning. And that means being willing to challenge yourself, you know, taking different courses you've never heard of, thinking about yourself in the world. So the Wise Heart Seeks Knowledge, I think, is a great motto, and I'm very, very glad it's Emory's motto, and I encourage you to have it as a guide as you go through your 4 years. Okay, so thriving in college and in life. Here are my rules. So all of you are at Emory because you are really clever. You can take that as a given. You know, you wouldn't be here if you weren't clever. And please also, I did turn off my message and I'm hearing a ping, so I apologize if you hear a ping. I turned off my messages and yet here they come. If you ever think, oh, someone made a mistake, I don't think I need to, you know, should I be here? Everybody else seems to have like APs and whatever. Yes, we have very devoted and fantastic admissions counselors, who many of whom you've met in terms of in the time you were applying here, who think very carefully about, you know, who is going to succeed at Emory and who do we want to be here. So we love you, we want you to be here, and please don't worry about not being clever enough. You are. That said, the students who come here, as you know, tend to be very clever, very driven, you know, like on it. That's how you got to be here. So the tendency is, I think, as I've seen in many years, is for students to take many, many credits, like too many. You want to really don't take more. I'm offering you my personal and professional advice. I'm not saying you're going to get this from everybody, but I do not want you taking more than 17 credits. You want time to be able to go and lie on the quad, which you can do under COVID, and look at the clouds, the stars, look at the squirrels. You need time to just decompress, and you can fill up your schedule a lot, but it doesn't mean that it's the best way of going through your first year. So I really would say, don't feel you have to have the heaviest credit load ever, and that you're not you're not on it if you're not like dying of academic stress. Forgive yourself and give yourself time. Okay, this will seem peculiar for me to say, but nonetheless, please go to class. Getting through college is sometimes just very basic. No, don't take too many credits. Go to class, read the syllabus, do your homework, get enough sleep, join one club at least, and make a friend. There's a lovely, a long time ago when I was first in the States, I came across a website that was called Fly Lady. She's probably still going. And her whole thing was, how could you, like, how to organize your household how to organize your household. And the thing she said was, make your bed in the morning, and every night before you go to bed, clean your sink. And I was like, what? Those are so basic. It is magic. I make my bed every morning and I clean the sink. And there's something about these very tiny microscopic rules of life that have an enormous value in just keeping one feeling like one's actually on top of things. So these will seem really simple to you, but they work. Go to class, turn up on Zoom. Okay, I'm going to have a whole discussion about that just now, but you know, unlike school, in college, you are more autonomous. Now, we are trying to really pay more attention under COVID so that we know you are okay. But nonetheless, you are autonomous, you know. Don't take that autonomy to tell yourself, I will go to class, turn up on Zoom. Okay, read the syllabus. The syllabus is the professor's contract really with you. I don't know if that's not such a nice word, but yeah, the syllabus is telling you what the professor wants of you in terms of expectations, what they are hoping to achieve in the class, when things are due, etc. So treat that syllabus like your friend. It should help you know what's what in the class. Okay, do your homework and manage your time. We'll talk about that too. And that's one of the things in college, you're going to have lots of open time. You know, you're not in school from 9 to 3 and then they, you know, etc. after school activities, and you come home, you do your homework until 1 o'clock or whatever. You're going to have many hours that are not filled with actual class. And this challenge is going to be even more, I would say, given that so many of the classes are online. Do your homework and sort out when you're going to do it in the course of the day. Don't let it all bunch up to the like 5 minutes before your class is due, because that will cause stress. Get enough sleep. It's really, really important to get sleep. If you get enough sleep, ideally 7 or more hours a night, the world does not feel so terrible. It feels okay. It means that you just feel like you can cope. You start getting too little sleep and everything starts feeling like you can't do it. So really, really do get enough sleep. Join one club. Again, I will give you my personal advice. I think students join way too many clubs. And the busyness of the clubs and the outside organizations gets in the way of actually while you're in college. You absolutely need a social life, and you absolutely need something that isn't academic. So I'm absolutely on board with that, and you really need it. But you do not need 10 organizations in your life. Maybe at the beginning join 2 or 3 so that you can find your people, but you don't need a whole bunch of them. And then make one friend. Over the course of time, you will have more than one friend, but really, you just need one person in your corner. And sometimes that could take a bit of time to find. So, you know, probably you'll have more sort of friendly types at the beginning, but, you know, you don't need more than one really, really, really decent human being in your life in terms of friendship. Okay, you have those, you'll be fine. Okay, so thriving in college 2, engage with your professors. Okay, so there's a lot of research on students in college. And as you know, because you've been reading, you know, been online and been reading, students are anxious, they feel isolated, and under COVID time, you know, again, we're all feeling a little shipwrecked. So there's been a lot of research recently and in years before about what is the thing that can help students really feel like they belong and are, you know, belong and are seen and are happy. And so Gary Glass is the head of counseling at the Oxford campus, Emory's Oxford campus. And he used to be at Duke University and participated there. And I'm going to look at my notes so I remember exactly what it's called. Hang on a minute. The Duke Social Relationships Project. And he worked with a professor they called Professor Steve Asher, who's a psychologist, to try and see what is the one thing that can really help students feel happy in college. And when they looked at everything from joining clubs to, you know, being, you know, going to class to having a broad social life to, you know, etc., all the things you can imagine. The one thing that they came up with was academic engagement. If a student was engaged in their classes and particularly had found the academic intellectual passion and knew at least one professor and was like either doing research or just went to office hours and really had a relationship with the professor, that was the best predictor of flourishing. There's also work by a man called Peter Felton, who is at Elon University, who works on, again, students, pedagogy, college life. And he too, he's written some books. I think the most recent is something like The Relationship Rich University. And again, coming from a different analysis, he came up with the same answer, which is, in the end, college is about relationships. And the most powerful relationship is the relationship you're going to have with your professors. So what I really want to underscore is, make sure you are, as it says at the beginning here, engaged in your field of study. Talk to faculty, and I'm going to help you figure out how to do that. Do your homework. Start, I'm not saying you're going to love every class. Sometimes, you just have to suck it up and do the classes you don't like for the larger goal. But make sure you are meeting your professors, engaged in projects, feeling some kind of intellectual stimulation. That, if you have that, everything else will fall into place. And I'm here, I'm a professor. I'm here also to tell you and try and demonstrate that we are generally decent human beings. And we might have bad days, but we are all teaching, and we're all at a college because we want to be. We like young people. We believe in knowledge. We want to help. That is why we have the jobs we have. We could all have gone into other, could have become lawyers or whatever. We're here because we value meeting you, getting to know you, helping you on your way. So please, please, please understand that from our point of view, we want to engage with you. Okay, so here are the necessary conditions to thrive. As I said right at the beginning, ask for help. It is very, very hard for all of us. For all of us, it's hard to ask for help. And I think it's particularly hard to ask for help when you're new at college, when you feel, you've got here by sometimes not even asking for help, but just like doing the work and getting here. But college is new. There are lots of new things, new rules. You can hear, as I was saying, I'm originally an international student. I came here to do my PhD. Things like credit hours, GPA, cumulative GPA. Americans always go, what? Most other countries don't have cumulative GPA. In fact, I don't think there's a single one. Anyway, so much of what is taken for granted in American higher ed was new to me. And even for students who've been in high schools, could come to America, whether from elsewhere or just are American, there are things in college that are new. And you really do need to be able to say, I don't understand. Could you answer this question? Where do I go? I have no idea what's going on. I mean, for me, I will say that for me, I have always found asking directions just a really hard thing for me to do, because I generally know where I am. And so for me to ask directions, I find deeply humiliating, because I just feel like I know where I am. But I have learned that sometimes I get lost and I need to be able to step it up. Okay, so ask for help. Things will be harder in general on campus at college, okay? I don't mean so much on campus as in college. That's the point, is that we have hopefully elevated the demands, and thus if you find that you're needing tutoring, that is not a sign, just again to what I was saying earlier, this is not a sign that you shouldn't be at Emory, or that you failed, or that someone made a mistake. No, it's a sign that things are harder. So please use the various offices, and again, speak to your professor to get help. There's a writing center, there's EPAS tutoring. Again, it's not a sign that if you start feeling I really need some coaching on whatever, it's just a sign that things are hard. Okay, and please go to office hours. And so I did a conversation a couple of weeks ago with some students, but I want to just say it again. Office hours are the hours in the week that professors all set aside to talk to students. We set them aside so that we can get to know the students in our class. I was talking to a professor today who's a professor of physics, and he was saying, I have a class of 150 students. I really, really, really want to know them. I love it when they come to office hours. So office hours are for certainly, there's a test in 2 weeks' time and you feel like you're not understanding. Could you go and ask? Sure. But they're also just, hello, I'm in your class, Math 101, History 200. I really like that book we read last week, or, I'm not sure. I was thinking that maybe this relates to that. What do you think? They are there to engage. And as I said to this other group of students, sometimes we're just sitting in our offices feeling a bit depressed, like where is everybody? And again, now it's all going to be on Zoom. We're here, we'd love to see you. So please go to office hours. So part of sometimes it sounds like the stress of going to office hours is people are not sure like what to call the professor, like do you knock on the door beforehand, do you wait? So first of all, in terms of professors, in general, go with the formal. Professor, in my case, Professor Scully, Dr. Scully, okay? Some professors might say, oh, don't worry, just call me, in my case, let's just say, call me Pamela. Others will say, oh, you don't need to worry, just call me Prof. But lead with the formal. And try and it's good to lead with the formal unless a professor tells you after you've said Professor X, they say, no, just call me whatever. Because we know there are biases against younger professors, women professors, and certainly women, so Black professors. And so you can imagine if you're a young Black woman professor, research shows that students are less likely to accord just automatic respect. It does not mean people that don't earn the respect, etc., etc. So it's really good to call people professor. And then if they say, no, it's fine, you can call me something different, that's fine. But lead with professor or doctor. You'll never go wrong if you do that. And similarly with email, dear Professor so-and-so. Email, think of email as email is a formal realm. Professors use email a lot. That is how they will communicate. You definitely need to keep up to date with your Emory email, or at least link it to your Google account or something. But email is used a lot at Emory by professors, and think of it as a formal letter. It's not like, hey, what's up? Will not go well. Okay, it's dear Professor so-and-so, I'm writing to inquire, etc. If you start going back and forth and you realize your professor's very casual, etc., again, maybe they'll say, look, you don't need to be quite so formal, but formal is always better. Netiquette, I'm borrowing this from Sharia Brents in the Office of Undergraduate Education, and you will find this in your PACE class. It is easy in Zoom to hide, and I'm going to talk about a little bit more about that just now. But one thing we know about Zooming is that, as you can see, in my case, it's showing you my rather untidy office that's full of photograph albums from various places. Maybe the easiest thing is just have a background photo. And as I was going to show you, I was just going to throw up a background photograph of the administration building and maybe of Cape Town. But turn on a background photo, then you don't have to worry about, does your room look more lonely than someone else's room or whatever. So you can always just have a background photo, and please turn on your video. Let me just see, I'm not sure. Let me just see where I'm headed, whether we are, yes, okay. So turn on your video, okay? Don't hide. This is a time to show who you are. It's nice also for professors to see people. Turn your video on. But again, understanding that there are different economic circumstances that everybody is experiencing, and that, one way to mitigate that is just have a background video on you. Okay, so to go back to COVID time, and I'm just going to look at my notes again to make sure that I get all the things I want to say. So hang on a minute. Yeah, so, as it says here, we're all recalibrating how we exist in the world in real time with this pandemic. This COVID kills. And so we have to take this really, really seriously. And I know for those of you who are on campus, and we are delighted to have you here on campus with us, but you're living in your single room, which maybe at one point would have been like a miracle. Oh, I have my own room. Now maybe it feels a bit lonely. So there are going to be things that we really have to be intentional about. You're staying in a room by yourself. Many of your classes are going to be on Zoom. So what I think we really all need to think about is that these Zoom classes, especially for first years, are the beginning of as I say here, a trajectory of relationships with both your peers and your professor. And again, I want to acknowledge Gary Glass at the Oxford campus, who in a conversation we were having raised up some of these issues, and I thought they were just really wise. And so think of each Zoom class isn't just, oh, there's my 45 minutes or whatever it is. Think of it as the beginning of a whole series of relationships. You know, when COVID is over, and even I think the most pessimistic projections suggest that you will not spend your entire time at Emory under COVID conditions. So you need to be thinking about, okay, how am I going to recognize the people who I only meet on Zoom? How are we going to figure out how we interact, etc. So think of the Zoom isn't just Zoom. I mean, we can all sit back like this and like go to sleep, turn off the thing. Think of them, no, this is the beginning of relationships. And how do I interact with my peers? How do I get to know my professor? Be active on Zoom as much as possible. Okay, I'm just reading a text that tells me there are questions. I'm just going to finish and then we will keep on going. And I'd love to have a conversation with you about questions. Okay, so I just want you to think about the Zoom environment as an opportunity to get to know people, not just a passive learning environment. And there will be multiple things you will do around, Zoom breakout groups, etc., etc., etc. So one thing I do also want to talk about is being honest about COVID time. And one of the things we know, all of us, all of us have been through 5 months of a very weird time. For some of us, it has been an incredibly sad time. Some of us know people who've died. It is certainly a stressful and anxious time. And one of the things we worry about, all of us, is, where did my motivation go? I used to be a great student and things don't really feel so important anymore. With climate change, politics getting very divided in this country, COVID, we don't need to have a vaccine. It's very easy to say, the problems of the world seem so huge. Why would we, it just seems hard to get motivated. So I just want to acknowledge that feeling is also part of COVID time. And we might have had some of those challenges before and they are enduring, but they can be exacerbated. So I think part of it is just owning this is a weird and scary and horrible time, and we are all making the best of it. Okay, so these things are the kind of things, again, are not rocket science, but they do help. Have a regular schedule. Try and find one place to work. If you're at home, even if it has to be your bed at night when you're not looking after siblings, or the kitchen table, or, if you're luckier, a corner of the sitting room or an office, find a regular place that you can associate with learning. Try and do exercise. An inspiration always to me is Nelson Mandela, when he was on the run from the apartheid government in the 50s. They were trying to put him in jail, which is what they did for many, many years. But he was hiding in a apartment in Johannesburg. He would get up every morning and run for an hour on the spot in silence so that he could keep active. And so when I'm feeling, I don't feel like going for a walk, or it's so complicated, I can't get to the gym because of COVID, I think of Nelson Mandela. He's a very good role model for many things, but do find a way to exercise. Turn up to class, do the homework, talk with your professors, as I said, and share with friends. There was a whole article in the New York Times about that we all need to learn to be vulnerable. And the way to really make friends and to find yourself is to actually be willing to say, I don't know, or I'm scared, or I feel stressed. And in a way, I'm doing that here with you today. I'm saying, yes, I feel stressed. This is a weird and scary time. And so to go, yay, we're all fine, it's all going to be great, is not actually telling the truth. I'd rather say, yes, we are all navigating this, we are in this together. And the more we can talk about it, the better it will be. Okay, so for this year, I would say figure out how to manage your time. Dive into your academics, find what you love, find what you're interested in, take courses that you haven't never heard of before. Visit the Career Center. This is a time virtually, but think about, okay, what do I need to think about in the next 3 years to try and think about internships? Do I want to do study abroad when that becomes possible? Go to office hours. get to know your professional advisor. All of you are assigned a professional advisor by your last name. This is the link. And that professional advisor will stay with you for all 4 years if you stay in the college. If you move to the business school or nursing, you will be assigned a professional advisor there too. But people in the Office of Undergraduate Education in the college can really help you with things like credit hours, and if I want to withdraw from a class, or should I withdraw, or who should I speak to? They are really, really helpful. Okay, and then before we go to questions, I just want to leave you with this again, Gary Glass. This is one of his recipes for grabbing college with both hands. Excitement is joy plus fear. And this gets back to what I was saying about the kind of the paradox of the first year of college. It's wonderful and it's kind of scary. And Gary's point is, yes, that is where the energy and the excitement comes from, is being willing to get out of your comfort zone and feel a little bit of fear, and that will lead to a lot of joy. So on that note, I will turn to questions. So yes, you could share this via voice. So I'm reading these chat things to myself. Okay, yes, please feel free to share via voice. That'd be great.
Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Sherry Obrens. I'm so happy to have you here, and thank you to Professor Scully, or Vice Provost Scully. I don't know, how do we address you, actually? That's a good practice.
I would say in this context, let's go with Vice Provost.
Okay,
sure.
Scully, sure. Okay. So you talked a lot about staying organized, which was great. But do you have any tips about really how to get started, or how to stay organized? Or maybe are there resources on campus to send students to if they're finding they can't quite figure that
out? That is a really great question. And, you know, what I would say is we all have our own methodologies. So you have to find what works for you. I make lists. And so I feel accomplishment when I tick them off. And I use something called To Do. It's a task list thing app, and I find it incredibly helpful. It just keeps me, you know, I just know what I have to do, tick, 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 and it disappears once I've done it. There are, I think, getting really familiar with your Outlook calendar is a really good way of staying organized. You could put all your classes into that. You could block off time for doing your homework. What I would say is that college is too complicated to keep it in your head. And the more you keep in the head, the more anxiety producing it is. So find whatever system works. I know one, he's now a sophomore, but I met him last year at an event. He was the first year. He blew us all away with his unbelievable use of his Google Calendar. He had things going off and reminders, and it was just unbelievable. So I would say find what works for you, but have a system. And in terms of coping with those blocks of time where it seems like you have nothing to do, block times off to do your homework, so that you know that, you know, it shows you that actually there's work to do, and it means that you get stuff done. And I would say the thing about college is, and I practice it to this day, is a little bit goes a long way. If you do a little bit every day, you just wake up you arrive at the end of the week and you discovered you have actually done the reading, you've actually done the books, you've done your exercise. If you approach life more like a tortoise and less than a hare, and keep your expectations kind of a little lower than, you know, perfection, you can get really a lot can get done, and it calms everything down. So I would say regularity, and then finding what system works for you is the key thing.
I'll just add to that, because I love these questions. In PACE, we'll talk about a lot of the academic support resources, including ePass. And I know you mentioned that too, but we have what we call academic coaches, and they'll even just sit with you, Zoom sit with you, and kind of work out the schedule and what works for you, because it is really different. We have our early birds, we have our night owls, you know, whatever that is. I usually recommend that you think about being a student like a full-time job. So 40 hours a week, right? Which includes logging into Zoom or your readings or your homework or any of that. But that still gives you 128 hours of the week to do anything else you want to do. So
I'm sorry, can you just say where they would find that help?
Yeah, if they Google Emory OUE academic support, it'll pop up, and we will talk about this in week 2 and 3 of PACE. So lots of opportunities to do that.
Thank you. And I will say that I'm teaching a PACE class, and I'm really looking forward to meeting my students. And again, I chose to do a PACE class so that I can meet students, because I really, I miss teaching, and it seemed like this was an opportunity to meet at least some of you. So PACE is a really good thing. It will help create the kind of, introduce you to all the things you need to know to be successful. Okay, another question.
Yeah, so these are kind of about really getting ready logistically for the first days of class, or the first few days of class. What do students need to do to actually be prepared on day one? Are they already behind if they don't have textbooks, or if they haven't done reading? You know, how do you start day one?
I would say, in general, if you just turn up, you should be fine. If you're feeling a little anxious, what you can do is email the professor and say, I'm really looking forward to class, and I'm just wondering, is there something I need to do to prepare? Which again is never a bad thing to do, because it demonstrates that you are forward thinking and that you're taking your classes seriously. Look at the syllabus. Sometimes, on Canvas, your syllabus should be up there. And if the professor wants you to have done something in preparation for the first day, it will be on the syllabus. So I would say the first thing, back to one of the rules of the road, is look at the syllabus. And if the professor really is expecting you to do something before to be ready for the first day, they will tell you. Otherwise, if the syllabus doesn't say anything like that, then I would just turn up, be on time. Different professors have different expectations of time. And again, in Zoom land, we're navigating it all. I can tell you, in the usual course of events, I'm one of the people who, I have rules about being on time, because I see classes as a collective learning experience. We are all learning together all the time. And so for someone to wander in half an hour late and have missed the first half of the class does not work for me. And so I have a rule, which is, if you can't be on time, the only way you can enter the room if you're late is if you can look me in the eye and tell me. You don't have to tell me always, but just know that you're being honest, that yes, there was a really, really, really good reason why you were late, and then that's fine. But people will have different rules. Some professors don't really care if you're late. So I think the key thing is look at the syllabus.
And just to remind everybody, for the first few weeks, or the first week, you should get a Zoom link for your classes, and the syllabus will then be posted in your Canvas course. So if you don't have a syllabus yet, you're not behind. And so log in on the first day. I think that's probably the best way for those online classes. And if you are in person, then I still think your syllabus should be in Canvas, is what we've been told. Okay. What about any other supplies logistically? I always thought that going to Office Depot or Office Max before school was my favorite part of going back to school. But are there any other tips or things that you could suggest for students getting ready for college?
I would definitely say, I know I've heard some students say, oh, you don't need to buy books and all that sort of thing. I would say you do. This is serious work that you're embarking on. Where you buy your books, I guess to some extent you can choose, but I wouldn't shortchange being invested in getting the books and readings that your professor has assigned. Some of them will be, open access online. Others might be a textbook you have to buy. Whether you need to buy them for the entire semester in the first week, I think, that I don't think you need to do. But I think you need to think seriously about, what is it that a certain course requires. There is drop add until I think the 26th, which means that you have some wiggle room. It might be that you decide a class isn't quite what you were looking for and you want to go to another class. That is always possible. I love, all the Office Max kind of, lovely pens and pencils and stuff. But, we are in the Zoom world, we're using computers far more. I think to me nowadays, it's more a philosophical approach, I guess, which is prepare yourself to really be part of the conversation in the class. And, if you feel scared, that's also how things are. But kind of tell yourself, I really need to really participate in this class. I think the rest you will find. I mean, some professors might want you to have some certain kind of technical apparatus or something, that'll become clearer in the course of the first week. I wouldn't worry too much at the beginning, actually. And feel free, if anybody, from OUE has other opinions, I would, feel free to share.
I'll say too, I think one of the benefits, and I don't know if you feel this way too, of being in Zoom in so many ways, is that the chat is a really nice way to get to interact without having to always speak. And just like you and I are actually chatting privately between us, it doesn't always have to be open to the whole class. And so there were some questions about how do I get to know faculty, or how do I get engaged? And that's a really nice way to do that as well.
Yeah, and I think, faculty, again, just to underscore, we are all of us, none of us have actually started a semester under these conditions. We those of us who were, on campus and in college last semester as professors, we were wrapping up the semester, figuring things out, but none of us, including professors and students, have ever started a semester in a pandemic. And so we are all learning all the time. So professors understand. We're forgiving ourselves for things that are not perfect. Professors will forgive you for things that are not perfect. Perfection has to go out the window. We are all just making this work, and making it work can be a wonderful thing. So I would say, email your professors, be in touch with them. Say, if you didn't understand something in class, email them afterwards and say, there was, I was following and then I just wasn't following. Could you please explain? Can I meet you in a Zoom, your Zoom office hours? The one thing I would just say about the chat function is the chat function can become, in a way, its own little distraction, because you can privately message people and go back and forth, and the Zoom conversation can disappear, you know what I mean? So I would say the chat function is great, and when you're in class, just use it judiciously, because it can become a lovely multitasking thing where one ends up not paying attention. So I would just give that caution, but chat is a very nice way of asking questions and staying in touch with people.
Awesome. I have one, I think we're coming up to time, but I have one really great question, and I think it's a good one to end on as well. And you've touched on this a little bit, but a student asked, what do you think the hardest challenge to adjusting to college from high school is? And maybe some parting words or some inspirational words about how to overcome that at the beginning.
I think one of the hardest things, when I'm just trying to think of what students have said to me over the years, and I think that time that seems that's so much time, that you have, 3, let's say 4 or 5 classes maybe, and 2 of them on a Monday, you've got one on a Tuesday, Thursday, and another one on a Wednesday, Friday or something. That leaves you a lot of time not in class. And so it is very easy to just feel like you have all the time in the world, and then discover, oh good grief, you've got like 3 midterms in the same week, and how did that happen? And you think, oh, that's a month away, and suddenly it's not a month away, it's like 3 days away, and now you're trying to learn for 3 midterms that are all either on the same day or in the same week. So I would say time management of that issue is, I think, one of the greatest challenges doing the transition from high school, because it really, your days are not as busy as they were in high school, which can actually be really, really nice. I mean, I would say, also speaking to some students over the years, college is lovely in that way. You have more time for yourself, you have more time to think, you have more time to explore. I would say that's also one of the frightening things about college for people who've been very, very, very busy cramming stuff into their life. That time can also feel too much, like a little too scary, like I'm not busy, which is back to my point at the beginning about not joining too many clubs. I would say, having taught for many years, sometimes I think people join lots of clubs so they don't actually have to confront themselves, and it's a way of being busy. And I think less is more. You really want to find things that are truly meaningful for you, and that finding things that give you meaning, whatever they are. And what it is it can be athletics, it can be robotics, it can be writing poetry, whatever it is. The key thing is to find the thing that really makes you alive, feel, and Emory has so much to offer. I guarantee you will find it at Emory. But just filling up the hours to be busy and not to have that slightly scary time to think, I don't think is the way. I do just want to say also, though, again, back to COVID time, we have wonderful people in the residence halls. The residence hall life staff is truly spectacular, and they have thought and continue to think really carefully about the fact that if you're on campus living, in a single room, they have really thought about how to connect you to each other and to others. Please take advantage of those opportunities. We are thinking very intentionally, and for our students who are watching from elsewhere in the States or overseas, we are also thinking really intentionally about how to connect with you and